Hello everybody, can you hear me? I'm conscious the sound's been a bit up and down today, but you can hear, okay. Well, I'm not sure how I follow a presentation about toast, but I'm going to do my best. This is back down to earth. We're going to talk a little bit today, myself and my colleague, about the planning portal. So my name is Sarah Chilcott, I'm the MD of the planning portal, and for those of you that don't know it, we are the National Planning Application Service for England and Wales. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about our journey over the last year where we've been working with Jadu. I'm going to give some context, and then my colleague James is going to talk to you in a little bit more detail about some of the changes we've made, particularly around some challenges we've had with the Welsh language that we have on the site, and some new changes to regulations that have come into force in the last 12 months that have been, I should say, quite challenging for us, and Jadu have worked closely with us to try and get some of those things fixed. So, just a little bit of a visual to kind of ease you into it. I've got two screenshots here. The first one is, the one on the left is where we were at the beginning of 2015. Quite an old style website now, I would say, portalised. And actually it had been on that platform for a very long time, and it was beginning to creak at the seams, I have to say. And the one on the right is where we are now, a new slimmed down homepage. You can see it's a lot easier, fresher. And we're certainly very happy with it. Okay, so I've already given you a little bit of this. We're the online home for planning and building in England and Wales. So we host the National Planning Application Service, and we've just launched one for building control as well. And we also have a whole raft of policy, advice and guidance on the site. We were actually part of the Department for Communities and Local Government until 2015. When we were privatised, and we're now part of a joint venture between DCLG and a private company called TerraQuest, who you may or may not have heard of. They are backed by MEARS, which is a FTSE 100 company, works a lot with local authorities in social housing and social care. Okay, a little bit more context here, just so you can see the kind of volume of traffic and so on that we're looking at. We get about 1 million visits a month. We actually come very high in most of the search engines. A lot of our traffic to our site comes through search, through organic search. But actually a lot of the traffic comes from local authority referrals as well. So that advice and policy I was talking about, it means that local authorities don't have to keep that up to date on their site. They link straight through to us. If you're involved in that, we have got some links guidance that we publish. If anyone wants to talk to us about that later, then please do come and see us. And of course, the other big part of the site is regular users. So not so much on the citizen side, but certainly on the professional side. Any of the professionals involved in planning or building, they use our site every day. They come back time and time again to make applications, access legislation, and so on. And again, we're actually processing about 90% of all the planning applications across England and Wales now, and passing those on to the local authorities. That's about 45,000 planning applications a month. Okay, so I mentioned again already that as of March 2015, we moved out to a joint venture. Our biggest priority at that point, I said earlier, our website was creaking. It took us quite a long time to be moved out of government, and the IT platform lasted much longer than any of us expected when it was originally let. So getting out of that system, moving on to a new platform and doing it very securely and safely for all those customers that rely on us was absolutely our number one priority. So we launched the new website in March this year. It took us 12 months to build. It was longer than we would have hoped. I think that's probably a common theme, having looked at some of the other presentations to the academies over the last few months as well. But it was really important for us to say it's a big piece of infrastructure as far as planning is concerned, and we really needed to make sure that it was secure and robust and wasn't going to fall over. Those customers relied on it. It is. I should find some wood to touch at this point. It has, to this point, been much more stable than our old platform. It's so much easier to use. I'm sure James will talk about that in a minute. Critically for us as well, the website was responsive. So people were able to access it on mobiles, tablets, which they just hadn't been able to do before. And so we have seen the mobile usage increase significantly on the site. And it's much more flexible and scalable than the old site was. So actually, from our perspective, it's been fantastic, and from the user's perspective, we've had nothing but good feedback in terms of not only the design, but the quality of the service. So far, so good. So that was a little bit of background. The main meat of this talk, I suppose, is about the Welsh changes that I mentioned briefly at the beginning. So we work directly with Welsh Government to deliver content and services. I don't know if anyone here is directly involved in planning, but it's one of the devolved areas of policy. So Welsh planning policy is slightly different to English, and it's changing all the time. And we have an obligation working with Welsh Government to provide that service in both English and Welsh. Just to make things a little bit more complicated for us, the Welsh language standards were tightened just at the same point as we launched the new website, having been in development for 12 months. And James is going to talk through what that meant for us in a little bit more detail, but primarily what it meant was actually Welsh comes first. Now, if you drive into Wales, you'll see that the signs are in Welsh first and in English afterwards. And very importantly for Welsh Government, there are hefty penalties for anybody that is breaching that legislation. So it was really, really important for them that we got this right. If anybody's interested in the Welsh Government language standards, then you can put a link on the presentation.
Or just Google it, because that's quite a lot to remember.
Or just Google it. Okay. All right, at this point then I'm going to hand over to James and let him introduce himself, and then we'll take some questions at the end if anyone's got anything. Thank you.
Hi, I'm James Garrett. I am currently now Product Development Manager at the portal, but previous to that and during the site development I was in a production management role. So it was my job to ensure that the content migration and the sort of restructure and build out of the CMS was successful, and I'd like to think it was, made in most parts. But yeah, as Sarah said, I'm going to talk more about the Welsh language standards. It's a large document that generally covers all levels of service for anyone offering services, primarily for users in Wales. And as I say, it has to be Welsh first or support dual language. The basic premise is that anyone who wants to use Welsh as their primary language can do so without hindrance. They're not disadvantaged. They don't have to use a cut down level of functionality or anything. And so that's enforceable through the Welsh language standards by the Welsh Language Measures Act, I believe. And yeah, there is a commissioner responsible for reviewing the work to ensure that anything that's obligated to do that complies to it. I've picked out a couple that relate more directly to our website. As I say, it's number 52. You feel free to read all the others, but as I say, I've just picked out these three. So the text of your website's available in Welsh. Every Welsh language page is fully functional. Welsh language not treated less favourably. What I'll do, I'll go through these and then I'll show you how it works on the site. That's probably the easier way rather than trying to swap between things on a computer I've never used before. So in general, what we did with the Jadu system is we've had 3 sites. So we've got the main site for England, and that holds the majority of our commercial services and sort of all the planning policy and guidance we have for England. And then we have 2 Galaxy sites for Wales, one in English, one in Welsh. When we created them, it was very easy. We basically created the English language Welsh site first, and we got Jadu to copy the whole database across to the other Galaxy. So we knew we were working from 2 identical sites. We then worked with Welsh Government to get all the content translated and plugged that in, and basically that made sure that we complied with this first standard. So we knew that every page we had was available in both languages. Like I say, it's all fully functional, and neither was treated more favourably. They're both identical. Second one, again, it's a bit wordy, but basically what it says is that you need to be able to switch between languages. So you know, what you want is a clear, direct link on every Welsh page to a corresponding English page and vice versa. And again, we manage that through Jadu. We just use the header of our site. So wherever you are, whatever you're looking at, you know that the links are always in a consistent location, and it's very easy to switch between the two. And thirdly, you must provide the interfacing menus on every page of your website in Welsh. Again, because of the language packs that are available in the CMS system, we can have all the system managed text that's not actually sort of content editable in the CMS, just as a database. We get Wales to translate that, and then we can implement it on the system. You know, we did a fair few rounds of user testing. We had the Welsh Government and Welsh users testing the site as well to make sure we sort of drilled down, checked all the pages, make sure everything was compliant. So sorry, I've already talked through some of these already in previous slides, but as I say, the requirement was separate websites for England, Wales, and with the Wales being a dual language. And as I said, we use the main CMS and the two Galaxy sites to switch between the English and Welsh language for the Wales site. We've had all the system text from CMS control. As I say, we use the Welsh language pack, which is applied to the Welsh Galaxy site. And then there's all the pages on the Wales Galaxy sites are linked to allow the transition between languages. I don't know if you guys have used the translation module within Jadu, but that basically allows you to manually link documents or downloads or events between your Galaxy sites, so you can switch between them seamlessly for the user, without necessarily them having to be in the same exact location or structure or category. The second side of it was an automated system that was based on categories and some of the system managed pages like About Us and stuff, which just would automatically pick up those pages from each Galaxy site and provide the link between them without you having to do it manually, which is very good. So I'll just run through a couple of the problems and fixes we had as part of that as well. We found during our testing that not all the system text was covered in the language packs. But again, all we have to do is raise these things to Jadu, they add them into the language packs, we can get the translation provided. It's a very simple interface on the CMS to just plug them in once they're available. This one was slightly more complicated. Not all the pages were either allowed to be manually linked or being picked up. So a good example was some of the category level pages in the FAQs and downloads sections. What we're finding was that maybe the front page or the top level FAQ page allowed language switching, but once you drill down into the categories, the language switching links were not available. We reported this to Jadu, and they worked to improve the scripts around the automated linking process so it would pick up these lower level pages, which again helps us meet our obligations to the Welsh language. And the same with sort of About Us and events, just again updating and fixing the bugs in the translation system so these were then picked up. Also, because the way Continuum works, we're getting continued rollouts. I know Jadu are looking to move away from some of the specialised pages and sections, for example FAQs, and that means they're going to be replacing them with more standardised document pages, which can then be covered under the manual linking functions. And yeah, that gives us more flexibility because, let's say, now it's all done automatically, but we'll be able to link it manually and ourselves. And then the final one was just that currently some of the language switching is limited to the top level documents, so we'd have sort of sub-document sub-pages or specific FAQs open. And we know that future development of the system, it's being continually developed. That's going to be looked into, but again, when we were testing this, we made sure that it met the needs of the Welsh Government and it was acceptable for the Welsh language standards, and thankfully it was. Yeah, I guess we could move on to any questions, but this was a small part of the work, sort of as part of a much larger overall bit of work we did for Welsh language. I have to say the minority of issues that were reported in our testing covered the Jadu system. The vast majority covered our forms and application service, which Jadu aren't directly involved, but provided the styling for. So we've been through a long series of fixes with our other partner Civica to make sure all the forms, all the user interfaces, all the search functions, everything else that's on the other side of the site is now compliant, and we're currently working with Welsh Government to find a solution for the new version of our interactive house that we just launched. Currently that's available in England only, but yeah, so we're looking to roll that out to Wales and Welsh soon. Any questions? Sorry, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the minutiae of Welsh language.
Do you want to go back to the site?
Yes. Oh, actually, that's what I can end that. What I will do, there we go. I can just show you what I was talking about. There you go, you can see that. So you can see sort of at the top of the page, got a nice clear choice of which country you want to see stuff for. So we switch into Wales. Again, switching to Wales, you can't see it up there, but because it's done via galaxies, each Wales and Welsh site has a specific URL. So again, if we're going out to LPAs or other people who want to link to specific versions of our content, they can do that directly. And then this does actually say view this page in Welsh. We made sure it didn't say the Welsh translator's out of the office, like the famous road sign was there for a couple of years ago. Oh, and there you go, and there's our Welsh language site. As I say, you can drill down. Oh, how do you scroll on the back? There you go. There you go. Everything just switched back to English and Wales very easily. Yep, so with all our menus, everything else is in Welsh language. I don't need to show you much more. If you want to have a poke around and try and understand Welsh, be my guest. It's been a unique challenge for me, not being a Welsh speaker and having to manage a content migration in Welsh. It's quite interesting, but luckily, as I say, we've been working directly with the Welsh Government, and they've been a great help to us, especially because, a lot of the language on our site, I wouldn't say, our reading age probably isn't the lowest, just because we cover a lot of very planning-specific parlance, and a lot of it's based on legislation and government guidance, which isn't always the easiest to understand. But yeah, the translators have been excellent. They've worked really close with us. They're always very quick to come back to us. We try and make sure they understand the sort of background of the work, and yeah, we've been very happy with the service they provided.